It's true. Once I was lost, now I'm found. When I get lost, I come back to the altar of truth. When I'm lost, I need to see. I need to see truth. I need to see differently than what I'm looking at in the story of my own mind that that story that keeps changing, it really is blind. You really are blind because you're following a story that's not true. It's not the whole picture. Only the Holy Spirit, only the mind of God can see the whole picture. I have to trust that. I have to trust that in order to get somewhere that I've never been, I'm going to have to step out of that same old pattern of telling myself a story that's not true. So, according to our wonderful book from Charles Fillmore, Keep a True Lent, this Sunday represents the altar. That's where I can find the truth, at the altar of my being. So that's what I want to talk about today. It also happens to be Black History Month, and it happens to be the season of nonviolence, which starts with the date that Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated and ends with the date that Martin Luther King was assassinated. So this is a celebration, actually, of everything they brought to us in terms of demonstrating not only nonviolent attitudes towards one another, but loving attitudes towards one another. Getting all the way through our resistance to our oneness, the resistance to our equality, and demonstrating love for one another in the face of the opposite sometimes. So I'm going to try to bring these themes together today. The first thing I want to look at is the idea of the altar. The idea of the altar as put forth from Charles Fillmore. The altar represents a fixed, definite center in the consciousness of man. It is a place within. It is a place within where we meet the Lord of our being face to face. And we are willing to give up our mistakes. Sin is just a mistake, you know. You know the definition of that. You guys have been around for a while. The word sin was an archery term. When somebody was shooting at a target and it missed the mark, they said sin. That means you missed the mark. It's just missed a little bit. That's all. So what we want to do is get on the mark. We want to get on the truth. And I want to speak of truth both in terms of relative and absolute, because there is your personal, authentic truth here. But that is going to change as you grow and evolve. So I really want to also maintain a focus on our eternal truth, on the absolute truth of us. So we come to the altar, and that's where we're willing to give up our mistakes. To say, okay, I'm not hitting the mark with that thinking. I'm not hitting the mark with that behavior. I'm not happy. That's a pretty good indication that I'm not hitting the mark. I'm complaining about life. I'm blaming somebody else for my situation. It's a pretty good indication I'm not on target. So, in order to get on target, we must come back to the altar of the Lord, where we meet the Lord of our being. And we give up the lower for the higher, says Charles Fillmore. We give up the personal for the impersonal and the animal for the divine. Amazing. He says prayer doesn't change God. It doesn't change things. It changes us. A sincere desire is a form of prayer. Deep desire is essential for spiritual growth. It is desire, earnest, intense desire that draws the whole being up out of mortality and out of its transient joys and into the power to appreciate and receive our spiritual blessings. That's where we come to the altar with an intense desire to receive our spiritual blessings, to come up out of our lower consciousness, to come out of our animalistic tendencies into the divine nature of us. I know we can do it because we do it all the time. We do respond to one another quite often out of our divine nature. But I'm proposing that we'll be much happier if we learn to do it all the time. That's my proposition, is meet me at the altar of truth every day, every moment. Meet me there. When you're feeling down a little bit, just meet me there. Actually, you guys can call me up too. You have an extra direct line to the altar if you want. Because when you call me up, we're going to pray. I'm just going to put that out there first of all. If you call me up, I'm not going to talk about all that stuff that's going on. I just want to pray with you. Because I need that. I realize that when I call people and pray with them, that I get the benefit. So if you call me, we're going to pray. Okay? Does that sound good? All right. We're going to meet at the altar. We're going to acknowledge our divine nature. We're going to acknowledge our equality in God. We're going to be excited and motivated to walk in the world as the Christ. We're going to be excited to be healed and whole and perfect as we were created. I love it. So the altar of truth is a place where we can, through prayer and meditation, and what I call divine action in the world, meet in the realm of spirit. And there we will commune with one another in the light, the true light of our nature in God. That's the altar of truth. We're going to meet there. Prayer, meditation, and then you get up out of your meditation chair or wherever you are, off your mat, off your prayer mat, away from the altar maybe that you've constructed at home, and you go out into the world and be determined to extend yourself through divine action in the world. Divine action, not a violent response, not a painful response, even though we may have those and that might be our personal truth at the moment. Let's go and heal that and then come out into the world with divine action. There are a lot of healers around here. There's a lot of opportunity to heal what hurts you, to heal what you've been carrying around. And it's time that you're given permission to just put those bags down. Leave them. Put down that burden. Get all the help that you need is available. Anything you might need to put down your burden, let's do it. And every day, I start out, if I wake up and there's a burden in my mind, I'm going to pray immediately. I'm going to claim a blessing immediately for that day, for this day. And I'm going to meditate on the truth. And boy, does it change me. It changes my thinking. It changes my whole energy. And I'm walking out into the world ready for some divine action. Otherwise, my default response to what happens is going to be one of defense. It's going to be one of attack. It's going to be one of suspicion. It's going to be one of separation. All those terrible symptoms of separation. That's what I want us to focus on healing. Not just today, but every day. I want to focus on healing the symptoms of separation. So when we speak of truth, we're going to have to distinguish a little between our own personal truth that does change as we evolve and grow. Our individual truth will change. And the ultimate truth of our being, because that's unchangeable. The truth of our being is eternal in God. God the good. Love and only love. That's the truth of our being. And when we come to the altar, we're going to meet there. We're not just going to meet with ourselves, but we're going to meet with a higher self. We're going to meet with a higher power. We're going to meet with that which gave birth to us in perfection. And when we go there, we learn a little bit more about our eternal nature. Because we feel it and experience it. We can talk about it all day long and twice on Sunday. But the point is we have to experience it. So the place where we do encounter that truth is the altar within. So it's also Lent, and this is the quick and easy way from Pope Francis, a guy from Argentina, from not the richest neighborhood either in Argentina. This is why I love this guy, because I've walked through those neighborhoods personally. I've met with people, and I've done A Course in Miracles with the people in Argentina. And it is a marvelous, incredible energy of loving one another. So this is where he's coming from, and I hope where you're coming from too this Lent. Because Lent, we're asked to give up things. We're asked to fast, right? So he says, if you're going to fast for Lent, let's fast from hurting words. That's a good one. Say kind words. So he's not just saying, don't do this. He's saying, you can do this instead. So let's say kind words instead. We can fast from sadness. We can be filled with gratitude. So when you're feeling sad and down about something, that's okay. You can feel that. But then, right afterwards, I would suggest sit down and write 5 things that you're grateful for. And continue that practice. I've been doing that and starting a gratitude bowl for 2021. And there's so many things to be grateful for. It just changes your energy, changes the focus of your mind. So instead of being sad, we can be grateful. Instead of being angry, we can be filled with patience. Patience. First with yourself, and then with everyone else. I realize when I'm not patient with others, it's because I'm really, really not patient with myself. I'm thinking I should do more, I should be more, I got to get more done, I have to impact the world more, I got to get out there and save this world. And that's not the energy with which I'm going to help anyone. I want to be in divine action, so first I have to go to the altar of truth and prayer and meditation. Then I will be in divine action. And so from pessimism, we're going to fast from pessimism. Stop telling those sad stories. Remember a couple weeks ago? Stop telling those sad stories and be filled with hope. What's possible? What good is possible? Instead of focusing on what bad can happen, focus on what good can happen. Don't worry. Fast from worries and trust in God. That's a good one. We're going to fast from worrying. Because worries do not take away tomorrow's troubles. They take away today's joy. So worry really is the worst use of your imagination. Because you're just imagining what can go wrong. So let's imagine what can go right and trust in God that will go right and so much more. Always will go right. We're going to fast from complaining. I love this. Contemplate simplicity. What a great opposite to complaining. Simplicity. Wendy has been bringing us this nice water that she's bringing from her home. It's like this super filtered water, and it's really good. And I'm just really delighting in drinking clean, pure water. That's pretty simple. Yeah, I love it. No, it's like one of the greatest things. Just the simplicity of cooking a meal for my wife or eating a meal that she's prepared. And the simplicity of really paying attention to the ingredients that's going into the food and how we're eating it. And our mindful conversations, what we talk about, how we express ourselves to each other. Are we looking in each other's eyes when we're talking? Or are we somewhere else? It's so important to be present with the person you're speaking with. So this simplicity is so cool that it takes away all your complaining. Because when you're in the now, You're so present, you don't have time to complain. You're so present and paying attention to what that person is saying. And inside, you're giving that person your attention. You're giving them that energy of listening. I think there's going to be one about listening. It's the last one. So we're going to fast from pressures and be prayerful. This is great. When I feel pressure, I say, I got so much to do, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to stop and pray. I'm going to stop and get centered. Then the next action will be the next right thing to do because I'll be paying attention. If I'm feeling pressure, I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. I'm just doing it to get it done. And then I'm not enjoying the ride. I'm not enjoying the adventure. I'm not enjoying the climb. We sing that song. Ori sings that song sometimes. We're not enjoying the climb because we're so busy thinking when I get to the top. But in life, there really is no top. You know, the people that fight to get to the top and they get there and they go, well, gee, where do I go now? There's another top you need to get to. You're never going to reach the top in that way. So enjoy the climb. Enjoy yourself in your journey. We're going to fast from being pressured to get there and realize everything is now here. Everything is here and now. Everything you could ever want or dream of is right here in this moment. It's right here. This is where everything is. And then we take that into the next moment. So wherever we are, God is and all is well. We say that, right? So we're going to fast from bitterness, resentments. We're going to fill our hearts with joy. We're going to fast from selfishness and be compassionate to others. We're going to fast from grudges and be reconciled. Just forgive. The Fillmores had a great practice every night before they went to bed. They forgave everyone who they could think of or who they had any resentments towards, so that they went to sleep with a clean heart. So I invite everyone to try that this Lenten season. Let's fast from grudges and forgive as we lay our heads down at night and go to sleep with a clean heart. And we're going to fast from words. And we're going to be silent so that we can listen. The thunder of silence. Yeah. Joel Goldsmith used to call it the thunder of silence. You can hear a lot being said. Just for a minute, everybody. Fast from the words, from your mouth and in your head. Just for a second. Keep your eyes open. Hear that? Whew, there's a lot being said there. How often do we do that? We need to listen more. Listen to each other. Listen to nature. Listen to the world and our environment. Listen to our bodies. And listen to what God is telling us inside our consciousness, what the universe is telling us. We need to listen to that. We really need to listen. So what is the ultimate reason for Lent? What are we celebrating? The ultimate purpose for Lent basically is purification. It's purification or the process of getting ready, getting prepared for our resurrection of the Christ in us. Getting prepared. We're setting an altar where the Christ and the light, which is the same thing, can be shown through us, can resurrect from our consciousness and come out into the world through that divine action that I mentioned. Purification is necessary first. We need to evolve, my friends. We need to evolve. The greatest need that we have is to raise our consciousness. When I look at the television, when I look at what's going on in the world, I say it's still our greatest need. It's the only way that we're going to move on. We're going to heal from the symptoms of separation, that we're going to move on from what we're doing to one another now. where we can celebrate our oneness, where we can really celebrate and love one another. And it also happens to be, this raising of consciousness happens to be our hope of glory. The Christ in you is your hope of glory. Charles Fillmore's favorite scripture, Colossians 1:27, Christ in you is your hope of glory. It's also our hope of ever finding peace, living on earth in peace with one another. It's our only hope of ending all the evil effects of separation. It's finding our glory. It's finding the Christ within. But I can only do that if I endeavor to see it in you. To see it in you. No matter how I've judged you before this moment, I need to see it in you if I want to see it in myself. It is our only hope of ending racism and homophobia, or income inequality. It's our only hope, raising our consciousness of ending the destruction of our planet and of each other. It is the hope of helping others who are less fortunate. It is the hope of overcoming our old patterns of violence and abuse. It is the hope of finding our truth, living in peace and sharing our joy. It is the hope of joining together in the ultimate truth of God in us. Seeing it in one another is going to be the way that we raise our consciousness, that we allow the Christ to be resurrected in us. We're working up to Easter. We're starting today, and we're going to allow this purification process to happen by fasting from these kinds of thinking, the kinds of thinking that do not help us any longer, and make a decision each day to join in divine action. So in closing, I want to use the words today of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King from this amazing book, which was put together by his wife, Coretta Scott King, the words of Martin Luther King Jr. You know, this is his famous quote that everybody remembers. Returning violence for violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. He goes on to say, this may be mankind's last chance to choose between chaos and community. I think he was absolutely right. And I love the idea that community is the answer. Because that's one of our missions here, to create community. Chaos or community. Community ends up being the positive thing. We fast from chaos and we choose community instead. This is the choice that Martin Luther King saw facing humankind. And if you look at the world today, I think you might agree that it is in chaos. I saw in the news a young man, homeless man, black man, get shot for jaywalking the other day in California. Yeah, walking on that was his crime. Not using the crosswalk. That was amazing. I'm not going to even get into that, except it's still happening. That's all I can say, is it's happening. And that is chaos. And we have the solution. The solution is to generate community, but through our spiritual awareness, through meeting one another at the altar of truth, not at the knee-jerk response to the violence, which also tends to be violent. We can approach this from the same level of consciousness as did Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi. So I'm going to read something from this book. I just love every part of this book. He said, hatred and bitterness can never cure the disease of fear. Only love can do that. Hatred paralyzes life. Love releases it. Hatred confuses life. Love harmonizes it. Hatred darkens life, but love illuminates it. He says we must demonstrate, we must teach, we must preach until the very foundations of our nation, and I would say of your thought system, are shaken. We must work unceasingly to lift this nation that we love to a higher destiny, to a new plateau of compassion, to a more noble expression of humaneness. I've tried to be honest, and to be honest is to confront the truth, however unpleasant and inconvenient this truth may be. I believe we must expose and face it if we are to achieve a better quality of life in America. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare, naked, and dejected with a lost opportunity. The tide in the affairs of men, of humankind, does not remain at the flood. It ebbs, it flows. We must carry out desperately for time to pause in her passage. But time is deaf to every plea and rushes on. Over the bleached bones of jumbled residue of numerous civilizations are the pathetic words, too late. I don't want it to be too late for you to wake up. I don't want it to be too late for us to love one another. He goes on to say, there is an invisible book of life that faithfully records our vigilance or our neglect. The moving finger writes, and having writ moves on. We still have a choice today, nonviolent coexistence or violent co-annihilation. This may well be mankind's last chance to choose between chaos and community. I know that sounds a little bleak, but for me it sounds very hopeful that we have a choice. That we need not resign ourselves to the parts of our world that are showing us what needs to be healed, because we can take the choice, make the choice to heal it. We can stand up and say, okay, it's not too late. I'm going to make that choice today to be as God created me. I'm going to make that choice today to walk in my divine nature. I'm going to take back my power that I've given to everything outside of me. Oh my goodness. I'm going to be a magnificent, powerful expression of the light in this world. And we're going to do it together. If you want to do it with me, then that's what I'm doing. And everything else really is just your insistence that it cannot be done. So I love the saying that says those who say it cannot be done should really stop criticizing the ones who are doing it. I think that's kind of important. Because in that moment, you're going to see that you too have the opportunity to make that choice as well. So where do we start? We start by meeting at the altar of truth. I'm always going to come back to the basics. I'm always going to come back to the start. Meeting at the altar of truth. We discover the Christ in us there. And meeting at the altar of truth, we will be creating community. instead of chaos. And we will be celebrating the love that we share, and we will be transforming lives. And that's what we're doing here. So thank you for being here with us today. Let's keep doing it. You're doing great. Keep making the choice for our divine nature. I'll always meet you there at the altar of truth, where we can wade in the waters of our salvation.
You have been watching the message from our Sunday celebration service here at Unity on Cape Cod, providing a positive path for spiritual living. Please join us every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. at 147 Walton Ave, Hyannis, Mass., and visit us online at unityoncapecod.org. This video was made possible in part through a grant from Unity Worldwide Ministries and the Templeton Foundation.